I would just want to call this out. Not every successful person is an IITian, and not every IITian is successful. So let me just kind of break that myth for all of you people. People can definitely move out of and do an MBA, but they should definitely know why to do an MBA. 99% of the people don't really know why should I do a post degree? Why should I do a post graduation? Why should I do a next degree? Why should I essentially join a job? Shravan, do you know the good thing about good things? And I said, no, not really. So he says, you can never be wrong. Choose what your heart says. College students, right? $50,000, right? We never saw 50,000 rupees together. So we ended up seeing $50,000. And I was like, wow, this is insane. We didn't negotiate. We said yes. When you have the capacity to hear negative things about you, जो लोगों में नहीं होती. और जब ये होती ही नहीं है तो आप में इंप्रूवमेंट ही नहीं आता. जब आप में इंप्रूवमेंट नहीं आता तो आप वहीं के वहीं रह जाते हो और फिर आप उसी तरह की लाइफ में जीते रहते हो. अगली नौकरी भी वैसी ही मिलेगी, अगली लाइफ भी वैसी ही होगी. और क्योंकि सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन आपके अंदर नहीं है. That was the initial dream, and we started off with an education program which kind of replicates that. But I think over time it evolved into multiple business models. We started the accelerator, we started events as a business, we started doing all of these verticals, but eventually building an ecosystem which is eventually going to support the community itself. The cash flows are going to go back into the community so that every person who comes inside keeps learning, keeps growing, and it becomes a place of growth, not only professionally but personally also. Yeah. Only thing that will make you successful in life is, guys, have a insane pain bearing capacity.
Hello all, welcome to my podcast, and today we have a special guest with us. The person sitting besides me on the screen, his name is Shravan Tickoo, and people from LinkedIn, YouTube know him as the Swag Wala PM. Why the Swag Wala PM? We will ask him, but on a later part. But giving a brief introduction about him, he have almost like 147k followers in LinkedIn, and he was the top 100 created in LinkedIn with the rank of 54, and he is also the founder of Rethink Systems. We would get to know more about Rethink Systems when we talk to him. And he was an ex-BYJUS, Flipkart, Blackbuck, Edureka employee. He's also an IITian. So lots of things to hear about him. We would get to know a lot of things today in this podcast. So he's also a mentor, wherein he's a mentor for me too. When I wanted to move my field from project management to product management, not even I learned product management, a lot I have learned with him. So we will know more about it during this podcast. So handing it over to Shravan Bhaiya, like we all call him as Shravan Bhaiya. So if I missed anything, you can mention over here. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Sanju Bhai, for calling me. I think this is going to be a super special conversation. I'm not sure whether I'm deserving of the accolades that you talked about, but lovely speaking to you and super happy to be here. Yeah.
First question, as I mentioned, Swag Wala PM. Why you being called as the Swag Wala PM, and what is the reason behind it?
Sure. So I think the PM comes from the fact that since I have been a product manager, right? So people know me because of that. So that was my forte. I built products for almost 10 years and did things like that. But the funny part is that I always wanted this to be more like a fun and a happening field. The name initially Swag Wala PM came from the fact that I didn't really want to teach people the boring stuff, which is generally boring. Like you talk, what is first principle thinking? What is design thinking? What is, how do you put up system dynamics? Now, these are things which are generally, when you read them in a book, they're boring. Like you will not find them like it's not something curious, right? So I always wanted to do this, that if people don't relate to what I do, at least they laugh. At least they feel secure that he is somebody who's not coming from a formal point of view, but from an informal point of view, that somebody who we can relate to, that one friend who gives advice, right? Or that one relative which always comes in and talks to you, or that one mentor to who you can speak your deep vulnerabilities and come to them. So I said that First, it was like a self-given name. So nobody gave that name to me. It was like a self-given name to myself. But I think it just caught on, right? Where people really, really liked. Initially, it was very informal. But over time, as the brand evolved, as I helped more and more people, whatever little I could, right? They started thinking of me in terms of this cool person who is like a bhaiya, right? And this moniker kind of stayed, right? That swag wala PM, right? So I think it came from the very same fact that where I wanted to be relatable to people, because product management is generally considered like a very uplifting and more like a very leadership kind of a role. So this moniker came from, it was a self-given moniker initially, right? That I wanted people to perceive me a certain way, where it was more open, more accessible and things like that. But over time, I think it was initially self-given, it stayed on. Right, and people liked it, they started reaching out, and this was one of the ways where I could connect to my students, right? And that's why the name came Swagwala PM. Yeah.
You have been an IITian, right? So how was that journey of IITian and how it molded out to you in a better person and what you're doing right now? So was there anything that relates from an IITian, because lots of them come from IIT and become a founder? You can see now India is full of IITians and they are the founder. So is there any essence from that part of your life?
Sure. But I think education did play a very strong role in my life, even though I wanted to pursue mathematics, right? I wanted to be a mathematician. I initially was super inclined, wanted to go to deep research institutions where I could do my PhD in mathematics, right? And essentially become a prof. But I think the deeper perspective which really happened was that when I prepared for IIT, I ended up getting into a branch which I really didn't want, right? So my parents sent me to IIT because there is this belief system, obviously, in the country that who goes to an IIT ends up becoming successful, right? I would just want to call this out. Not every successful person is an IITian, and not every IITian is successful. So let me just kind of break that myth for all of you people. But I think the one thing that I really, really give credit to my college, right, is because that institutions which are generally hard to get in, right, have this very interesting crowd who is ambitious. I would not say that whether that ambition is like good ambition or bad ambition, but they are ambitious. They would not settle for something which is obvious, right? And that is a very concurrent theme that you see in premier institutions. So I had my friends who really, really wanted to build companies, another friend who wanted to become had the dream of becoming the home secretary of the country, another friend who wanted to essentially probably go and do his PhD from MIT, nothing less than an MIT. So when you have so many people, those kind of people around, your aspirations jump up, right? And you say, oh, why am I thinking of settling down with like a 1 lakh rupee role or a 2 lakh rupee role? But I would rather want to build something larger than life. So I think I have a lot of gratitude for my college. It really, really brought me across to people who have deep aspirations in life, and coming from a middle class background in a city which is not very well known, coming from that place to a place where there was a shift in mindset to look at people who can dream and aspire about the bigger things in life, that was something super special. So more than the education, more than the access, I would say it's the people which really changed me. Right. And that is where that ambition started creeping in, that why don't you build something which builds your legacy? So a lot of gratitude to my college. I am super, super proud of that. I was privileged enough to go to a premier institution. But yeah, I think it was the people which were super special over there. Yeah.
One question to you: when you when your IIT was completed and then you moved into your corporate world, so how was that journey? And I wanted to ask this because people should directly enter to do a job to know market, or if they have an idea then directly start something.
Makes sense. So I think very good question, Sanju bhai. I think I would definitely would see, for me, my journey is not something that I typically recommend people to follow. It was a very interesting journey, but it came with a lot of hardships, plus and minuses. I think the one thing that I keep recommending youngsters is that between the age of 20 to 30 in life, right, this is the age of experimentation. Right? Here you can make poor choices, yet get and essentially learn from it. After a certain age, you don't have that flexibility because you have tons of things that are on your shoulder. It can be family liability. It can be your own settlement in life. It can be you driving towards the purpose that you want, right? So for me, in general, I always used to ask myself this question as like a golden rule, right? That will I really enjoy this experience if I do it for the next 1 year or 2 years? Right? And that is the question I kept asking. And what I meant by enjoyment was primarily from the point of learning. Secondly, from a point of growing as an individual. Third, how does it tie back to the deeper purpose in life or something that I aspired in my life back then, that I would get an idea and build a company, right? So it is completely dependent on people. People can definitely move out of and do an MBA, but they should definitely know why to do an MBA. 99% of the people don't really know why should I do a post degree? Why should I do a post graduation? Why should I do a next degree? Why should I essentially join a job, right? And it's completely okay at the age of 22 to do that, right? Because I was as noob as any of the people around there. But the reality that I kept asking myself this one question, that will I enjoy it? Will I feel happy with it? Right? And that was the deeper context that I always had. So I'll give you one very interesting anecdote. When I just left college, I had the option to join one of the premier MBA schools in the country, right? I had another option to join one of the very good liberal arts universities in the country, right? And the third role was Flipkart, right? Which everybody knows about, right? So what happened was, when I visited that place in Gurgaon, right, where I met Pramad Singh. I met the founding dean of ISB, right? And it is long back. I'm not sure whether he even remembers. It's like 12 years back. And there was this one interesting conversation where he talked about, and he said this, that I asked him that, sir, there are these three interesting things that I can do post college. Maybe join a school, come here, or probably take a job. And I find all three of them super enterprising, right? So what should I do? Right? I'm clueless. So like I'm kind of, so then he says, Shravan, do you know the good thing about good things? And I said, no, not really. So he says, you can never be wrong. Choose what your heart says. If all three things are good, right? So what your heart says, choose, go with it. So I think my recommendation to everyone is not necessarily to jump into the corporate world, but don't end up doing which you're doing it for the sake of others. You want to do an MBA, do it for the experience, do it for the network, do it for some value that ties back to your purpose in life, or at least the purpose that you want to figure out in life, right? Or if you want to join a role, or if you want to do your master's, completely okay. Your choice, nobody judges you over there. Only thing is that you should be clear from your heart that, does it make sense for me, right? Do I really want to do this? Because in the long run, the things that if you do the things that you like, and you make up doing that, you'll be happy and purposeful. Yeah, makes sense.
Most of the stories are known because you are doing YouTube since long and you have been connected in LinkedIn since long. But I want that one story which brought you into the product when you were in college, you created some project. Because
sure.
My viewers and listeners are completely new what you are doing. So I want that story, and then we will go to the main part of what is Rethink Systems and all that. Okay?
Makes sense. So I think product management was something that I didn't even know about, honestly. Right? It was not something that I was looking forward to. I told you I wanted to be a mathematician, right? That was my thing. So there's this, so what used to happen was, like, I used to be in college and and somehow at heart I was a Delhi boy. Right. The reason for that was because not really that I was Jammu, but I have this Punjabi accent because I was raised by Punjabi people. Right. And I used to spend like my summer vacations in Delhi, my winter vacations in Delhi. Right. So you could say like 3 months of the year I was in Delhi. Right. And I have all my relatives in Delhi. So I was like this Delhi boy. So I had this attachment towards Delhi, that the historical significance so I used to read books, poetry and things like that. So when two of my friends, I used to go from like Roorkee to Delhi, and we obviously, boys being boys, we used to go essentially hang out, have beers and whatever and whatnot. So, and obviously being in college, like my father saying that, so everything is sponsored by the State Bank of India, why the hell should I send you money every month? And I had to make excuses that, dad, send me $2,000, send me $1,500, send me. So, but there was always this upper ceiling, right? Because he knew my education fees was sponsored by the State Bank of India, right? So I practically had zero expense, like from a family side point of view, right? So with whatever little money we used to go to Delhi, and in Delhi, whenever we used to visit bars and etc., a lot of times cops essentially got us, and we ended up paying more money to get out than actually enjoying. So at that given point, this thing that struck into my head, oh, obviously this is not scalable. I get like $2,000 a month, right? And I end up spending like 1,500 on things which I never used for myself. This is not scalable. So I told two of my friends to essentially build something on the lines like that, where we can essentially, not in real time basis, but at least if we can pin out somewhere that there is a cop from this road, at least for the next half an hour, don't go from here, right? So it was not as real time as Google Maps. Obviously, we didn't have that infrastructure, but we wanted to make it like works in 90% of places, things like that, right? So we made this APK, right? We named it very interestingly called Cop Radar, right? And which was, again, just a name that came to our head, and we put it across. And we kind of put it across in the Play Store and never expected anything to happen. Honestly, it was a specific use case to me and probably a few of my friends, right? So what happens was like completely unexpected, right? After 3 odd months, what typically happens, we see that this insane download surge has happened. People, like 2 lakh people have downloaded it across. And this is way back in like 2012, right? Like when people did use apps and etc. And I was like clueless, ki ye ho kya raha hai? So we ended up reaching out to Google and essentially asking them that kaun kar raha hai download, ye kyun ho raha hai, right? And we kids being kids never thought of it like that way ki yaar ki humne socha tha hamara ek use case hai, we'll essentially solve it and then apni jeevan sort ho jayega. Eventually serendipity happened, and one fine day this large enterprise B2B company comes to us and says, oh, why don't we want to buy your app for like $50,000? And again, college students, right? $50,000, right? We never saw 50,000 rupees together. So we ended up seeing $50,000. Like, and I was like, wow, this is insane. We didn't negotiate. We said yes. Makes sense. So we got, and at that moment was like a epiphany moment for me, the Eureka moment for me. I was like, wow, if this thing does exist in the world, like if I can solve something and get paid for it, this is the best damn job on the face of the earth, right? This is what I want to do. I couldn't become a mathematician, which was like my first love, but if this works, this also is something that I really like. And at that given moment, there was this one senior who gave me this book called Inspired. It was written by Marty Kagan, right? And I opened this book and I started reading it. And after like the 2 chapters, I realized, oh, he did something. He's talking about something very similar to what I did, right? And then with zero context, just on the face value, I want to become a product manager. That is when I decided. And that is the real story. Like when I went into product management, my world changed, right? I realized, oh, it is not as glorifying as it looks from the outside, but at least the only 2 and 2 that I add together was that in Inspired, it's written, build products that users love, right? And figure out a problem. And I did figure out a problem, right? Then build a small product, build an MVP around it. I didn't know what's an MVP back then, but he was telling build a product, a small workable product around it. We did that. Then he says that if that product really solves the problem, you have something called product market fit. It did solve a problem. It got like so many downloads. People were using it, right? And that is when I put 2 and 2 together and said that, oh, I want to become a product manager. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And then I kind of continued my journey into the field, figuring out what it really means. How do you become a better product manager? But yeah, that's the story. Yes.
Thank you for that wonderful story. I would not talk more about product because as everyone knows about it, and I want to discuss more about Rethink System. But before going to Rethink System, just a few liners of your corporate world experience with BYJUS, Flipkart, Blackbuck and Edureka, so that people get context like where we are going with Rethink Systems.
Sure, absolutely. So I think my journey started with Flipkart, and I was a business analyst in Flipkart. To be very honest, I didn't have the PM title, right? So I joined in. So they hire 2 types of people from IITs and IIMs. The IIT people are called GTs, graduate trainees, and the IIM or the MBA people are called MTs, management trainees, right? Now as GTs and MTs, we are shifted across verticals. Some people are given analytics, some are given business, some are given supply chain, some are given. So this is more like a discovery role in the company. At least it used to happen 2015, right? So I started working for this category called electronics, right? And I was taking, and electronics was like the super category. It had like multiple things: trimmers, epilators, electronic devices, smartwatches, mobiles, etc., keyboards, monitors, things like that. So it was like the complete whole category, which was as an overall category for the business doing like 20-25% of the GMV. So obviously, I was working very closely with product managers, and I was an analyst, so I was pulling out data for categories. For a brief time, I did also handle the category of trimmers and epilators, right? Trimmers, which sell epilators for women, right? That and over time, what happened when I my first boss, which I was like super grateful that I had such an amazing first boss. People find it super surprising, and he is a CXO. You know him, right? You already know him, so. My first boss essentially groomed me into a very different person. Like 8 months, 9 months with that person, he always used to tell me, Shravan, that you are like a horsepower, right? So you essentially just want to run, but you need direction, right? You need to be. So I consistently used to come up with solutions and used to bombard them out. कि ये क्यों नहीं करते हैं? ये क्यों नहीं कर रहे हम? ये क्यों नहीं कर रहे? इससे ये problem solve हो जाएगी. So then he always used to tell me, कि bro, listen. It's great that you come up with a solution, but these are very simple-minded solutions. You don't see the implications on a lot of other places that if we... So what you can essentially do is you spend some time for the strategy and the product team. Back then, Flipkart had used to have their offices in this business park. It's called the Cessna Business Park. I think they still have offices there. So I used to go there, and the design and product verticals used to sit there. Right. So I kind of used to meet product people over there, trying to just being this noob guy and going there and sitting with them. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? So eventually, after 9-10 months, I was like super clear कि यार मेरे को business नहीं करना, data नहीं करना, मुझे product में ही काम करना है. So I went to my boss. My boss, being the nice person that he is, he says that it's very hard to get into a product role here. So what I would recommend is that if you and you're learning whatever I can teach you, I have already taught you, right? So you can make a choice that if you want to continue here, or you can look for a role somewhere outside, because it's hard. So, and because the nice guy is that he is, and he essentially gives me the right advice that यार business में सीखना है तो मैं सिखा भी दूंगा, लेकिन अगर product सीखना है तो समय लगेगा. So I did my jump. So I started figuring out that, oh, I know data. Product managers do look for data. So apparently I used to think myself that I'm a smart guy. So I said that, oh, I have these skill sets. I can use data. I can leverage all of these things. I can do all of this stuff. And I started applying very consciously. What happened was I got like 2-3 places who were interested in my profile, right? One of the places was in Hyderabad, which was like, again, profitable rummy company, right? So where they gave me like a 150% hike, and I was like mind blown. I was like, leave Bangalore, come to Hyderabad. We are giving you like so much money, and for like a 22-year-old kid just outside of college, itna paisa to kabhi dekha hi nahi na, right? And what happens at that point, I get an offer from this enterprise or this trucking industry company, Blackbuck, which has raised like Series A. They have these amazing IIT Kharagpur, choti company thi tab, 100 ही लोग थे. उसमें से 70 people were, maybe 60 people from KGP, specifically IIT Kharagpur, people from IIT Bombay, Delhi, and I met the boss, and the boss said ki, bro, it's not a product role, but it has 30% elements of product, 70% it's going to be an analytics focused role. So if you want, but so I made, and we will only give you like a 10% hike. Now, I had this option, like to choose like a 150% hike in a city which is cheaper versus an option which is giving me a 10% hike, not even a product role. At one place, I was getting the PM role. The other place, I was getting an APM role, right? And I was like, and now everybody in their right frame of mind would say that I want to join there, right? Because it makes sense, right? But again, the eccentric person that I am, I said, no, I want people. I want to be around the very different kind of people. I want to learn from them. So I went there, spent like the first 6 months, wrote code myself, right? Wrote YAML code, SQL code, complex SQL queries, built like a very interesting analytics engine for Blackbuck. They were so happy that they promoted me to PM like in 6 months. They said like, wow, insane, right? Post that, what I did was, I think there were some complications at home, and I really wanted to go home. I always used to feel कि यार दिल्ली में काम करूंगा तो बहुत मजा आएगा, घर भी जा पाऊंगा, and it has been so long since college that I have not spent time at home. So I joined Times Group. So spent some time over in companies over there, but I very could glaringly understand that, and it was a very nice role. Like I worked with very nice people, that very nice companies, and Delhi has this very nice, at least they make commercially viable businesses, very nice commercial. So I learned a bunch of things over there, right? But the reality was that from a cultural standpoint and the kind of person that I just couldn't fit there, right? And even though I was like, again, very eccentric, you would say that पैसे बहुत अच्छे मिल रहे हैं, right? सब टीम में सब खुश हैं, right? दिल्ली में घर के पास हूँ. Again, it was just the status quo. Like कि मैं नहीं जी सकता ऐसे कि यार इतने पैसे आ रहे हैं, घर चल रहा है, मेरे को कुछ ऐसा चाहिए जो मुझे एक्साइट करता है, जो मुझे बिल्ड करने में हेल्प करता है. अगेन वेंट विदाउट अ जॉब, रिजाइंड इन अ रोल विच पीपल, जो लोग बोलेंगे भाई इतने पैसे मिल रहे थे क्यों छोड़ के जा रहा है, भाई क्या सीन है जीवन में. कल्चर की भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, ऐसा भी नहीं है कि तू कल्चरली वहां पे दुखी है, राइट? वो भी नहीं था. बट द रियलिटी वॉज कि कल्चरली मैं दुखी था. किस तरीके से? कल्चर का सिर्फ ये मतलब नहीं होता कि हाउ डू दे टॉक टू मी, और हाउ दे, कल्चर का ये भी मतलब होता है कि आपका नैरेटिव जिन लोगों के साथ वो मिलता है कि नहीं मिलता है. तो मैं कल्चरली कहीं ना कहीं दुखी था कि यार ये तो नहीं करना मुझे, राइट? From there, again, a very interesting, weird thing. I felt like maybe I should join the VC world. Applied to 2-3 fellowships, solved those fellowships, didn't join them as usual. Came back, joined this interesting company called Edureka, which was in the upskilling space, right? And I think there they spent considerable amount of time on business, understood the business side of things, spent scaling the company from 50 crores to taking it to 120 crores, like in 12, 13, 14 months, right? And again, not completely my effort. I had a very amazing team who helped across, but scaling the business, learning that, hiring kaise hoti hai, spending time with the CEO, right? And post that, I think the journey was very enterprising with BYJUS. I'll give you some background to it, and I think people will kill me for it. Like, agar main kuch is baat mein, lekin still, I just want to say that how it makes sense. So I essentially, what happened was that I worked in Edureka, and Edureka was a synchronous learning and a live learning platform. Generally, live learning used to happen in the upskilling segment, not in the 0 to 12 segment, right? कि वहां तक live learning का concept offline ही था तब तक. I'm talking about 2019, right? तो offline ही था कि आप IIT की कोचिंग के लिए जाते थे, live पढ़ते थे, लेकिन offline पढ़ते थे, online का culture नहीं था. COVID was about to hit, right? So they wanted a person who has essentially worked on the live learning piece, because BYJUS for the longest time was an asynchronous company, right? Asynchronous learning company where recorded videos, put in a structured format and put. So and when I got hired as a principal PM, right? And I was told to build a 0 to 1 product in $1 billion company. Now that was an amazing thing, right? Because the thing was, they had distribution, they had everything, right? One of the problems that a product manager always feels is that they might not have distribution, right? आपने product बनाया लेकिन user ही नहीं है, तो उनके पास वो था. और I had like the best people. The CPO was the head of product at Zynga before that, and I had some super cool people. The one thing that I learned from BYJUS, right? And again, like, people will kill me for it, but then again, I just want to call that out, that every person has two sides, not denying what happened, what didn't happen, but the vision, the narrative that a person sets across, right? I learned from him. That was the truth. Because a person sitting in a room and then talking about that, how can we build like $100 billion company from India, having the audacity to do that, right, is not an easy thing. People might mock you, but the thing was that for the longest time, right, he was a good teacher, right? And that's why he scaled. That's why he built businesses. Initially, he was a cat teacher. And people loved him, right? But I think, as I keep telling to people generally become from good actors to bad actors and bad actors to good actors. So they have to build an introspection layer. So I think I learned a lot, built like a $100 million business over there. We had distribution, learned a lot from that perspective. And in the most recent role, I was like the director of product at Bhanzu, where I essentially was taking care of the live learning platform, how do they build a product. And again, it was in math learning space. So the last 4-5 years, besides the educator journey, were primarily in education, right? To understand building edtech products. So I think that's the context before I kind of ventured into Rethink Systems. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for that brief explanation about your corporate world journey. So coming to the main question, like we would be discussing more about a Rethink System. So I wanted to know what is a Rethink System and what made you want to start Rethink System, and how did you know that there is a need of Rethink System?
Sure. So I think way that, again, it's a very philosophical kind of an answer to this, but let me just try to briefen it for you. So over the last 3 years, I was myself an educator, right? And and the attitude that I used to carry for any problem in life was that it is intent and honesty in action that makes you successful. And people generally have a very poor estimation of what they can achieve in long term. If I ask Sanju bhai, what will you do tomorrow? You'll tell me very upfront कि कल मैं फुटबॉल खेल रहा हूँ. लेकिन अगर मैं बोलूंगा संजू भाई 6 महीने बाद क्या कर रहे होगे, क्लूलेस, नहीं पता कि भाई क्या कर रहा हूं. तो people generally, so they underestimate efforts in the long term, right? What I mean by long term is जब दिखी नहीं रही वो 6 महीने चीज वाली चीज, तो आपको कैसे पता चलेगा कि मैं आज मेहनत कर रहा हूं, तो it is time back. So the people who generally have a long term vision and they ask this कि यार अच्छा मुझे घर बनाना है और 10 साल लगेंगे उसमें, तो वो खुशी क्योंकि उसको वो ड्रीम दिख रहा होता है यार, वो जो चीज है ना वो बहुत ग्लोरीफाइड है, और किसी को दिख रही हो नहीं दिख रही हो, मुझे तो दिख रही मुझे. एंड दैट इज व्हाई आप कुछ हद तक बोलते हो फाउंडर्स डिल्यूजनल भी होते हैं. वो डिल्यूजनल इस तरीके से होते हैं क्योंकि वो चीज देख पा रहे होते हैं जो बाकी लोग नहीं देख पा रहे होते हैं. बाकी लोगों को लगता है अरे यार क्या बात कर रहा है, मतलब दिस मेक्स लिटिल सेंस. मोस्ट ग्रेट आइडिया स्टार्टेड एज अ जोक, बाय द वे, जस्ट सेइंग. तो similarly, so for me, when I was an educator, I taught like having a product management channel with 2.5 million views in product management, which is like insane, right? तो उसके बाद भी मैंने क्या देखा कि कुल मिला के 300-400 बच्चों की नौकरी लग रही है, राइट? अब इतना एफर्ट मार के अगर ये नंबर 10,000 भी होता तो मैं बोलता यार चलो कुछ इम्पैक्ट था, right? लेकिन the reality of life is if people should change, education or operatorship should change people to become better humans, because you only become a better operator if you become a better human. This is by design a principle. I'll tell you why. The reason is आप अच्छा ऑपरेटर तभी बन सकते हो या अच्छा प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर या इंजीनियरिंग मैनेजर या प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर कुछ भी, जब आपके पास फीडबैक रिसीविंग कैपेबिलिटी है. क्योंकि आप इतने स्मार्ट तो हो ही नहीं, क्योंकि द वर्ल्ड इज सो कॉम्प्लेक्स दैट फॉर एग्जांपल आप फुटबॉल खेलने जा रहे हो, ठीक है, आप बहुत अच्छा प्रिपेयर किए, चलते चलते आपका एंकल ट्विस्ट हो गया, तो ये आपके कंट्रोल में तो नहीं था, ये तो आपने फोर्स ही थोड़ी किया था इस चीज को. तो उस चीज को आप कैसे हैंडल करोगे? दैट कम्स फ्रॉम द पार्ट जहां पे आप बोलते हो यार मैं एक अच्छा ऑपरेटर हूं, मैंने इसको भी प्लान करके रखा हुआ है कि व्हाट इफ आई गेट अ येलो कार्ड एंड आई एम आउट, हाउ डज माय टीम वर्क, राइट? तो अच्छे ऑपरेटर्स के पास ना हमेशा ये कैपेबिलिटी होती है कि वो डाइवर्जेंट फीडबैक को अप्रिशिएट कर सके, राइट? और उसको अपने जीवन में अप्लाई कर सके, राइट? और ये एप्लीकेशन जो होता है ना, ये आप ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते कि मैं 1 महीना करूंगा तो हो जाएगा. ये जर्नी लंबी है, ये जर्नी तो शायद मरते दम तक है. तो आप और डाइवर्जेंट फीडबैक आप कब रिसीव कर सकते हो? व्हेन यू हैव द कैपेसिटी टू हियर नेगेटिव थिंग्स अबाउट यू, जो लोगों में नहीं होती. और जब ये होती ही नहीं है तो आप में इंप्रूवमेंट ही नहीं आता. जब आप में इंप्रूवमेंट नहीं आता तो आप वहीं के वहीं रह जाते हो, और फिर आप उसी तरह की लाइफ में जीते रहते हो. अगली नौकरी भी वैसी ही मिलेगी, अगली लाइफ भी वैसी ही होगी. और क्योंकि सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन आपके अंदर नहीं है, तो जब सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन आपके अंदर आती है तो सबसे पहले आप ये बोलते हो यार क्या मैं सब कुछ सही कर रहा हूं? बिफोर आई इवन टेल टू समबडी एल्स कि whether you are doing your job right, am I doing my job right? Am I being the person who can listen to everyone? Is everyone comfortable, or am I leading by example? That is the reason. जब ये चीज होती है तो आपके ऊपर के जितने भी स्किल सेट्स है ना, चाहे वो कुछ भी हो, संजू भाई अगर जेन्युइनली मेहनत करें और बोले कि मेरे को कुक बनना है और 1 साल तक प्रैक्टिस करते रहे ना, शुरू के 2 महीने सब मजाक उड़ाएंगे, लेकिन 10वें महीने तक पहुंचते पहुंचते जाओगे ना तो आप शायद वन ऑफ द बेस्ट कुक्स बन जाओगे. I'll give you a very interesting anecdote for it so that you can relate to it. So there is this person called Christine Faulkner. She participated in the Paris Olympics, right? So in 2000 17, she was a student at Berkeley who essentially became a VC, right? And she studied from Harvard, came from pedigree and everything, whatever. And she was a rowing champion in Harvard. Rowing champion, right? So in 2017, somebody told her that cycling is a very cool thing, right? So आपको cycling शुरू करनी चाहिए, right? And she started cycling as a hobby. In 2024, she became the first American woman to win 2 gold medals in the Olympics in 2 separate type cycling disciplines. This is what long-term and persistence does. 7 साल पहले it started as a hobby. And in 7 years, she became the best damn cyclist in the world because there was that discipline that I will do it every day, do it every day, do it every day. And when 7 years compounded, she became the best in the world. This is what essentially catapulted my thought of starting a very, very operator-focused network where everybody aspires to, because that was the attitude that I just told you my story. मेरा attitude भी वही था कि भाई मचाना है, सीखना, knowledge पर I have to gain wisdom, more and more wisdom, more and more wisdom, and wisdom can only come through understanding knowledge, applying it. Understanding knowledge and applying it, right? So, and whatever little success that I got, right, was because honestly, Sanju bhai, I'm not the best product manager in the world. I'm not the best storyteller in the world. The thing was, but I always used to tell people, आप श्रवण से ज़्यादा intelligent हो सकते हो, श्रवण से ज़्यादा काबिल भी हो सकते हो, मेरे से ज़्यादा famous भी हो सकते हो, लेकिन सर मैं इतना passionate इंसान हूँ ना, आप मेहनत करोगे 16 घंटे में 20 घंटे कर लूंगा और 20 घंटे रोज करूंगा, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. ये मेरा खुद का एटीट्यूड है और इसी एटीट्यूड ने मेरे को अच्छा बनाया, राइट? कि मैं हार नहीं मानता. मैं बोलता हूँ भाई एक ही जीवन है, अगर अचीव करना है तो हार की तो क्या ही गुंजाइश. फिर क्या हुआ? तो अक्टूबर 2023 and Athar and I was growing on LinkedIn and everywhere and people were reaching out and they were saying, श्रवण यार क्यों कर रहे हो, मतलब आपसे बात करना तो बहुत मुश्किल है, it is very hard. मतलब the funny part is, which Athar was saying very rightly, and Athar was, again, Sanju bhai, you know, he works with us. So he was telling this one fine day that a lot of people used to come to Bhanzu, not to join, but just to speak to me. कि वो पहला इंटरव्यू क्रॉस करेंगे तो सेकंड इंटरव्यू में श्रवण से बात करने को मौका मिलेगा. तो सच में काफी लोगों ने, तो मैंने बोला यार ये तो स्केलेबल नहीं है, लोग मेरे से बात करना चाहते हैं, मैं बात ही नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ. तो मैंने एक छोटा सा व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाया और व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप के अंदर मेरा थीसिस यही था कि यार कि अगर मैं अपने से लीड बाय एग्जांपल करूं तो शायद कुछ लोग सीख जाएं और वो भी वैसा ही करें, राइट? तो मैंने वो व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप, एक छोटा सा व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाया, उसको एक्टिव रखने की कोशिश की, वहां से अपने पहले स्टूडेंट्स निकाले, राइट? और काफी थीसिस बदली भी तब से, राइट? मतलब आई रियलाइज्ड कि मैं पहले शायद इस तरह से भी सोचता था कि सारी दुनिया शायद मेरी तरह सोचती है कि मैं भी ड्रिवन हूं तो दुनिया भी ड्रिवन है, पर ऐसा नहीं है. That is not reality. I'm being very honest with you. Like मेरा अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये होता था कि शायद लोगों को वो गाइडेंस कभी मिली नहीं. But I don't think that's the case. Doing actions is very hard. It takes effort. Like संजय भाई, आप अभी मेरे साथ बैठ के एक पॉडकास्ट कर रहे हो तो आपको एक्शन करना पड़ रहा है, राइट? अगर आप इसको अचीव करना चाहते थे, अगर आप सिर्फ घर पे सोचते कि हाँ यार मैं one fine day I'll do it, वो कभी होता ही नहीं. So to act takes effort, right? It takes some bandwidth of yours. And then I'm telling you to do that same thing every damn day is not easy, right? So that is when I started and I said कि ये action वाली चीज कहाँ से आएगी? ये तभी आ सकती है जब आपका value system clear हो. वैल्यू सिस्टम का क्या मतलब होता है? वैल्यू सिस्टम वो वैल्यूज होते हैं जो आपको एक सुपीरियर पर्सन बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं. देयर आर 2 levels of values. There is something called higher values. There is something called lower values. Lower values are general values, जैसे आपकी helping somebody to eat food or helping some. Higher values are those values which on the face of success and everything, you'll still not say no to them. Like if somebody comes to you and says, I pay you a bribe of 1 crore rupees, but can you do this thing for me? If you have a very strong integral value system, you'll say no, I don't give a damn about it, मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता, राइट? तो वो क्यों होता है? क्योंकि ये वैल्यू सिस्टम आपको ना इंटरनली पीस पे लाते हैं. That's why I keep telling people, why are most people unhappy in this world? The reason for that is they don't have a purpose. और जब आपको पर्पस मिल जाता है ना अपना कि यार मुझे ये काम सच में बहुत पसंद है, तो आप कभी भी दुखी नहीं होगे। आप 16-16 घंटे भी काम करोगे ना, आपको लगेगा यार इट्स लाइक यू लव प्लेइंग फुटबॉल, इफ आई टेल यू टू प्ले फॉर 5 आवर्स you'll have, आप थके भी होगे तब भी खेल लोगे 5 घंटे, तब भी आप खुशी खुशी खेलोगे फुटबॉल. सो आई थिंक दैट इज वेयर इट स्टेम्ड फ्रॉम, दैट there is a lot of content in this world but not enough context in this world specifically to build very high quality people who are high quality in their mindset, in their thinking. And then if you have a pool of like super high quality people of 10,000 people, there can be n number of business models on top of it. And I always knew that static wealth has zero value, right? So investing wealth in the right places is a great thing. So मैं हमेशा इस चीज को प्रीमियम भी इसलिए रखना चाहता था, मैं चाहता था कि शुरू में आपके जेब पे बर्डन पड़े, कॉन्शियसली पड़े, होना चाहिए, क्योंकि तभी तो शुरू में तो कुछ तो एक्सटर्नल मोटिवेशन होनी चाहिए ना कि आप फाइट मारोगे उतनी. बाद में जब आपने वो 7 हफ्ते 8 हफ्ते 9 हफ्ते अचीव कर लिए, ये कम्युनिटी में रहे, तो अब आप खुद ही चेंज हो गए, फिर आप खुद ही फाइट मारोगे, फिर आप खुद ही फाइट मारोगे. तो मेरा ये कॉन्शियस थॉट था कि यार कि मैं इसको एक्सक्लूसिव बनाना चाहता हूँ, प्रीमियम बनाना चाहता हूँ और एक स्पेसिफिक तरह की ऑडियंस को ही लाना चाहता हूँ. उसका रीजन है क्योंकि मेरे को ये बात बहुत पहले से पता समझ में आई कि यार इनकॉम्पिटेंट इंसान को आप कॉम्पिटेंट नहीं बना सकते, कॉम्पिटेंट इंसान को एक्सीलेंट बना सकते हो. और कॉम्पिटेंस कभी टैलेंट में नहीं होती, कॉम्पिटेंस होती है इंटेंट में, कि मैं कितना इंटेंट हूं, कि मैं हार मानने वाला बंदा. अगर मैं बोलूंगा कि संजू भाई डू दिस फॉर मी, हाउ मेटिक्युलसली कैन यू डू इट no matter what happens. That is where competence comes across. So I think that was the initial dream, and we started off with an education program which kind of replicates that. But I think over time it evolved into multiple business models. We started the accelerator, we started events as a business, we started doing all of these verticals, but eventually building an ecosystem which is eventually going to support the community itself. The cash flows are going to go back into the community so that every person who comes inside keeps learning, keeps growing, and it becomes a place of growth, not only professionally but personally also. Yeah.
Got it. Now you talked about premium, right? The premium structure. So I just wanted to know one thing, because you have mentioned like LinkedIn, or it's in your page or Rethink System page. I don't know exactly. You have mentioned you have managed to make, I know the number is more now, like it's almost like $250-100K from your course without spending a single money on marketing. How that happened? So I wanted to know that too.
So I think I'll give you a sense. We've already done 350K. Well, up to is bar. So I think the one thing that I keep telling, and this is something that I learned from very good operators, is see, the reality is that people spend money in, nobody is dumb, मतलब बेवकूफ कोई नहीं होता, राइट? तो ये बात सबको समझ में आती है कि जब आपका एक्सपीरियंस एलिवेटेड है और आपके पास, सी लेट्स अज्यूम यू हैव 3 experiences, right? The first experience is 10, the second experience is 20, the third experience is 80, right? The moment you go to 80, right, however amount of money 10 and 20 spend, you're never going to go back to 20 as an experience, right? मेरा थीसिस भी वही था. मैंने जब आर्ट एंड प्रोडक्ट म्यूजिक्स बनाया, राइट, मैंने क्यों वो जो 1 महीना मैंने जो जान लगाई अपनी उस व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे, वो मार्केटिंग की तो थी, वो कॉस्ट ही तो थी. That was not just that it is not coming out in ad dollars. But it's my time, right? And I value my time very, very honestly. बहुत अच्छे से वैल्यू करता हूँ. जब मैंने वो किया, उसका रिटर्न आया फर्स्ट कोहोर्ट, फर्स्ट प्रोग्राम that happened, right? That's where, और वो प्रोग्राम जो सस्ता भी था, 30-35 हजार रुपए का प्रोग्राम था, 50 स्टूडेंट्स थे, and we booked like 15-16-17 लाख रुपीस in like 2 days. एक दिन में हमने बुक कर लिया. तो I was like wow. But वो फाइट थी. फिर क्या हुआ, जब मैंने अपने आप को हमेशा ये बोला कि यार मेरा एंकर पॉइंट और कोई प्रोग्राम नहीं है, मेरा एंकर पॉइंट मैं खुद हूं. तो मैं अपने, और मुझे पता था कि यार लोग इसको अभी नहीं देख रहे, लेकिन जब ये जर्नी 12-18-24 महीने हो गई ना, तब तक तो तुमने तोड़ ही दिया होगा, तब तक तुमने कुछ और ही बना दिया होगा. यू विल रीच. तो मैं हर प्रोग्राम में अपने लेवल को इंप्रूव करता गया, एज एन एजुकेटर, एज अ मेंटोर, एज अ स्पीकर. जब मैंने प्रोग्राम ही इतना क्वालिटी बनाया है, तो लोग अपने आप बात करने लग गए कि भाई यहाँ आना है, यहाँ से सीखना है, राइट? एंड दैट इज व्हाट आई एंश्योर. सो आई कीप टेलिंग पीपल दैट first, and then increasing the price again, then in the third cohort it increased again, in this cohort it's slightly increasing more again. So आप अपने आप को प्राइस से कभी कम मत करो. आप ये बोलो कि क्या आप, जो मैं आपको हमेशा बताया, जो परसीव्ड वैल्यू है जनता की, आप उससे ज्यादा ट्रू वैल्यू डिलीवर कर सकते हो? तो आप सर 1 लाख क्या लेना है, आप 10 लाख भी ले सकते हो बाद में, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है। क्योंकि ये सिर्फ आपकी ऑडियंस, जो राइट ऑडियंस है, उसको समझ में आना चाहिए कि जो मेरी वैल्यू है। जैसे मैं आपको अपना एग्जांपल देता हूँ। आज की डेट में व्हेनेवर आई गो टू इवेंट्स, आई चार्ज $5,000 $6,000 फॉर एन आवर, राइट? उस रेंज मैं रेट पे चार्ज करता हूँ। काफी लोग जानते भी हैं ये चीज, लेकिन कंपनी को वैल्यू लगती है। उनको लगता है कि अरे ये बंदा आएगा तो आपका एंकर पॉइंट कभी प्राइस नहीं होता। आपका एंकर पॉइंट होता है कि जो आपका जो कस्टमर है, जो आपका स्टूडेंट है, क्या उसको सच में ये वैल्यू फील हो रही है कि मेरे जीवन में कुछ बदला? एंड इफ योर माइंड सेट चेंजेस एंड दैट इज सो प्राइसलेस, एट दैट पॉइंट आप बोलते हो भाई कि इट वॉज नथिंग फॉर द चेंज दैट हैपेंड इन मी, right? So we essentially started building a very pull focused business that we'll do very high quality. We'll build an ecosystem like that. But obviously we are a small team. It takes time. There are initiatives that get struggled, and that's the life of an entrepreneur. But slowly, as you're building a very profitable, a structured, a community focused, value focused business, I think people just want to connect. That's the vibe. Right? And that is where you essentially grow as a business. I never did imagine, like, after like 10 years of my life, we'll build like if we are on track to do like $1 million, if we execute very well, that $1 million business in the first year, right? Never thought like that, right? But हमेशा से ये थॉट जरूर था कि यार, कि जो भी कर रहे हैं ना, अपनी 100% क्षमता पे कर रहे हैं। और कोई बच्चा मेरे पास ये नहीं आके बोले दिल से कि भैया, कि मेरे साइड से, उसके साइड से उसकी कमिटमेंट कम हो गई तो वो अलग कहानी है। वहां से आके मुझे बोले कि भैया, आई वॉज ये मेरे को मैं एक एजुकेटर हूं, हमेशा यही बोलता हूं, मैं एक सेल्समैन नहीं हूं, मैं एक एजुकेटर हूं। मेरा गोल ये है कि जो मैं आपको देके गया उससे कम से कम 5 गुना मैं आपको देके जाऊं, ताकि आप संतुष्ट हो, मन से अच्छे खुश हो। और उस पॉइंट पे आप आके कभी नहीं बोलोगे। एंड दैट इज व्हाई अ लॉट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स कम टू मी एंड essentially tell me ki bhaiya, you did something for us, or the community did something for us, right? And again, finding you, making you a friend, right? It's all a privilege, and it's, I think, the blessings of Bholenath that it happens. So we have been very focused, very nimble in our approach. We have not tried to do like, we like to do boring stuff, right? And boring stuff has most of the value. So we keep doing that, executing that well, and keeping this thing in our mind. We have to be humble, we have to be grounded, we have to give value to everyone. Everybody is putting their hard-earned money, and we should really respect that. We should really respect that and take that as our duty and responsibility to deliver value. And I think that is the core, where the core value system kind of generates from. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for that. One question you mentioned about this cohort. So what exactly is this cohort? Because the viewers and listeners might not know it. So what is this cohort, and what all about it?
Makes sense. So I think the cohort, even though it's called the Mastering Product Management Program, it is a decoy program. It's not really a product management program. It has a flavor of product management because I am a product manager, right? But I think the deep part is that it is a mindset changing program where you start looking at life not as half empty but half full. You start looking at from an abundance mindset, that there is enough for everybody in the world, right? I just have to give my best. You start looking from and appreciating the system in a way that the change starts with you, right? You start becoming kinder, generous, and it is a program which essentially creates, or at least gives you the cues of building a higher quality value system. What is a higher quality value system? It makes you kinder. It makes you generous. It makes you humble. It makes you resilient, right? It gives you that abundance mindset. It helps you trust people, right? It's that experience designed as a decoy product management program, right? That it has principles of product management. But the reality is this program eventually will move into and will transform into something that I have still not figured out the brand name, but to give you a sense, a 1% operator program, right? And eventually it will have flavors to it. Product as a flavor, engineering as a flavor, project management as a flavor, design as a flavor, but the principles will remain the same. They will consistently anchor on your value system. How do you conduct yourself? How do you talk to other people? How do you build connections? So this is a 9-week journey. It started as a 7-week journey. We added 2 more weeks. We added productathon and the retreat at the end of it. But it's a 9-week journey where we essentially have designed this program from ground up to help you come from a -100 place to take you to +100 in your mindset. And more phenomenally, if your mindset truly changes, if you come and make deeper connections like friends, foster those love, right, your life will eventually change. Because even if you come to a point where you say that I am feeling very low in my life, if you have the right kind of people around you, you'll uplift yourself and you still start preparing. And that is the reason people over time have become successful. It is not because of Shravan. Shravan is just one node. It is because of the ecosystem, the community that we have created across, and that is why I consider it special. If it's a post-content world, my friend, content is not the mode. It is the experience that is the mode. It is the people that is the mode, and that is what is special about the program, which is again a decoy program, which will eventually move into something else. I don't know the branding, and if I speak about the branding in what way, my team will kill me. So I just want to tell you that it is eventually going to become a program which heavily focuses on you changing your attitude and your way of, or your mindset of life. And if you do that and you want to learn whatever the hell you want to learn in your life, you'll become great at it. Yeah.
Got it. So, Shravan, when you mentioned it is not that into product management, but still it's the first principle of product management,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
now it is more towards like a changing career. Like, so what skills and mindset do people need to be successful for this switch? And
Sure.
if suppose a person, like I know a lot of people might having like asking you the same question, we don't have that technical background, we don't have
Sure.
that product knowledge, how we can come into this and how we can change our career to this?
Sure. Makes sense. Cool. Yeah, very, very good question, Sanju. So I think the answer to that question is, see, if you really want to change your career, the first thing that you have to do something that's called a competency graph, right? You should first look at your own core competencies. Where are the core? Are you a good technical writer? Are you a very good storyteller? Are you a very good, probably a project manager, right? And you make your competency graph. Once you have a competency graph, try to look at in the dream role that you want to have, right? Make its competency graph and see where are the gaps. Right? Now we have figured out the gaps. Then I would recommend that you start working on those gaps by doing something called a proof of work. Right? A lot of people think resume is a thing of the past, man. There are piles and piles of resumes in dustbins which nobody cares about, right? So that the reality is create something which can act as a proof of work. And this is where the program also helps, right? That we essentially help you create that proof of work. But a lot of people make these mistakes. They think that, oh, I've done this program, so I was a sales guy for 15 years. I'll straight away become like a senior PM in product management. The world doesn't work that way, my friend. You have to understand that there are some of your strengths and some new skills that you learned. And you again have to look at your career as a journey. You would say that, okay, I was a sales lead for like 15 years. The next role might be, which is very similar to it and ties to my strengths, is probably going to be a partnerships lead. Right? Because I've done sales. Now, the partnership lead also has 20% of product management and project management. Once you become that, you do your one project in your company. You do it for 3 months, and do it meticulously. Then you do another, And maybe in the next 9-12 months, you have done 4 or 5 product management projects, which you've asked you. And these are small things, which will build credibility in your company. Once that thing has happened, then you can say, oh, I have been a partnerships lead. I also led these small projects. This is my structure of working. This is the proof point. Now I want to become a product manager. And that is where when your manager will say, makes sense. You've done this. This is your proof point. You have convinced everybody. Now your next logical role. That is when you will not have to take a salary cut. You would actually go to a good role. This is a mistake a lot of people do. Especially experienced people do, because once they get to know, oh, I want to become a product manager, and they realize, oh wow, कि product manager इतना enterprising field है, फिर वो यही सवाल पूछते हैं कि सर मैं तो 15 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ operations में, मैं अब अगर अभी जाऊंगा तो मेरी salary तो 1/3 हो जाएगी, 1/2 हो जाएगी, तो मैं क्या करूं? लेकिन मुझे बनना भी product manager है. मैं हमेशा यही बात बोलता हूँ कि सर आपकी स्ट्रेंथ है, वो आपकी वीकनेस नहीं है. If you are a good project manager, Sanju bhai, that's your strength. But you've acquired some new skills also. So, and this has built over 10 years your strength. At least spend 1 year on this so that this also grows, and then you essentially make a move. For early stage students just out of college, they should focus on analytical capabilities. They should focus on proof of work. They can straight away jump into like a PM role or an APM role because obviously it's a lucrative role. They should develop structured thinking, storytelling. So in general, I would recommend for all types of audience, make your own competency graph. Understand what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Then look at your dream role and then see its competency graph. What does it want? Right? See where are the gaps and try to fill those gaps by building a proof of work, whether it's in design, whether it's in project management, product management, engineering, whatever. And then once you have filled those gaps over a period of time, again, life is a marathon, Sanju bhai, and to all your viewers, right? It's not a sprint. आप एक स्प्रिंट दौड़ के ये नहीं बोल सकते कि आपने वॉर जीत ली है, ऐसा नहीं होता. या आपने एक मैराथन जीत ली है. तो life is always stepped. So don't jump. Don't say that, oh, I'm standing in the next role in SPM at Google. No, doesn't work like that. You have to pave that path. You have to say, my next jump probably would be at a mid-scale company. I'll become the best there. Then the next jump would be at Razorpay. I'll become the best there. And then the next jump would be at an SPM at Google. I will eventually achieve there. Like, I will pave my path so that I have enough credibility. Because good companies, they look for credibility. They will say, yaar, main aapko kyun lu? Why should I take you, right? Just because you say that you're competent, at least there should be some proof of work which is saying about your competence. Huh? So I think that's my advice, general advice. Yeah.
That's what I learned from your cohort too when I was a member of your cohort. So my next question is, like, you have trained lots of people right now. It might be more than 500 people that you have trained. So how you keep your training relevant to the market? And what is the approach that you follow in training? Because there are lots of competitors, right? So how you keep that training approach and relevant trainings?
Makes sense. I think I always keep telling this thing, and this is something that I spoke, like, ideas are easy, execution is everything, right? Ideas are like a dime a dozen, right? Every damn person can come up with an idea and say, oh wow, it seems so enterprising and interesting. I think the way only I keep relevant is because I always keep asking this question, that if this product that I'm building or this ecosystem that I'm building is not upskilling me, then how can it upskill anybody else, right? So I have this unique attitude where I say that learning is like breath. It happens every moment, right? It is not something that I do for 2 months and then say, okay, I will be 2 saal ab chill marunga, ab fir 2 mahine. That is, so I consistently realize that learning you have to do horizontally and you have to become better. And that attitude has to instill. So we keep making changes to the program, and we consistently keep improving that as a conscious, rigorous effort. And again, the second part where you said that how is it different? Again, context, right? Content is okay, you will find the same thing at any time. It's the instilling of that. मैंने हमेशा ये बात बोली, विद्या इंसान अपनी क्षमता के अनुसार ही ग्रहण करता है. The same statement I make to Sanju bhai versus to somebody else, exactly same words, same tones, there will be 2 different narratives. Somebody will understand it very differently, somebody will understand it very differently. So the reality is that if you essentially keep consistently working on the smallest of, it is the boring things that have value, right? People think, मैं आपसे इसका simple example देता हूँ. आप 2 website बनाते हो, दोनों वेबसाइट का बनाना तो आसान ही है. $10 का अपने एक वेबसाइट पे 500 लोग अपनी लीड देके जाते हैं, एक वेबसाइट पे 5 भी नहीं देते. ऐसा क्यों? कुछ तो, अगर इतना आसान है, सेम नॉर्मल चीज है, इतनी सिंपल चीज है, सब लोग पढ़ा रहे हैं, तो एक अच्छी क्यों, एक खराब क्यों? फिर सबका रिजल्ट भी सेम आना चाहिए, राइट? आप आज अगर आपको मैं स्पाइस जेट और इंडिगो के बीच में चूज करने को बोलूं तो प्रोबेबली आप इंडिगो चूज करोगे. क्यों? सब कुछ तो सेम है, आपको पता है वो डिले नहीं होती. इट इज द स्मॉल थिंग्स that builds that experience, right? Same happens with knowledge. यहां पे knowledge है, उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है. यहां पे knowledge होगी, वो सिर्फ डेटा है. जब वो आपको ही बदल दे वो knowledge, when it transforms you, like if you say documentation is good and you start doing documentation every single day, right? That is when it transformed you. अगर आप बोल रहे हो किसी को डॉक्यूमेंटेशन इज इंपॉर्टेंट एंड यू आर योरसेल्फ नॉट डूइंग इट, तो वो बोलेगा भाई क्या बोल रहा है आदमी, कुछ भी बोल रहा है, राइट? दिस इज वेयर द प्रोग्राम इज डिफरेंट. इट इंस्टिल्स दैट दोज हैबिट्स इन यू कि नहीं आपको करना पड़ेगा, नहीं करोगे तो पीछे छूट जाओगे. नहीं, एंड देयर इज दिस वेरी फेमस कोट बाय सेनेका एंड आई लव इट एंड putting it out at other places. I always say this: the person who blames others is nowhere. The person who blames himself is halfway there. The person who blames no one has arrived. So you are a change makers. Say the external surroundings को बदलूंगा मैं. 99% of the world says because this was the external situation, I couldn't do it. Because my boss was bad, I couldn't scale. Who told you to be in that job? आप उस जॉब में इसीलिए रुके हो क्योंकि आपको डर लगता है कि अगली मिलेगी नहीं नौकरी, तब जाके, और आप क्रिप कर रहे हो मेरा बॉस मेरे पे चिल्ला रहा है. अगर इतनी दिक्कत हो रही है आपको, किसी भी बंदे को, जैसे कोई बंदा बोलता है यार मैं क्या करूं, मेरे ऑफिस का कल्चर ही खराब है, मैं करूं क्या? मैं बोल रहा हूं भाई तुझे रुकने के लिए किसने बोला वहां पे? तो यानी कि तू भी तो अपना ही रिस्क हेज कर रहा है ना, कि ये बोल रहा है कि आई माइट नॉट गेट माई नेक्स्ट जॉब. सो यू हैव सम कॉम्पिटेंसी डेफिशिएंसी इन यू, दैट्स व्हाई यू आर चूजिंग टू स्टे इन अ बैड प्लेस, राइट? दैट इज द एटीट्यूड ऑफ पीपल हु ब्लेम. उसे दुनिया में ये प्रॉब्लम है, दुनिया की ये दिक्कत, अगर दुनिया में ये चेंज हो गया तो मेरा जीवन अच्छा हो जाएगा. वो तो कभी होना ही नहीं. चेंज मेकर्स हैव दिस एटीट्यूड. What do I change in myself so that I change my situation to reach to a point where I want to reach, right? So Rumi also has this very phenomenal quote. He says, yesterday when I was clever, I wanted to change the world. Today when I'm wise, I want to change myself. So that is it. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I too relate to it because that's a changing part that I had during the cohort and after the cohort also. Yeah. So I also know you do investment, you are angel investor and all that. So I wanted to ask one question regarding investment, choosing the investment. What do you look for when designing which startup to invest in? And I don't want a correct name, but which investment had made the most successful for you?
Sure. I think it is okay. I would obviously not disclose the name because it is slightly confidential. But then again, what I want to put across is I have a three-pronged thesis, very simple, right? The first is how large is the market, right? And honestly, at some places I'm anti-TAM also, but generally मैं ये देखता हूँ कि large से कहीं ज़्यादा how impactful is the product to a decent sized market. Second, I try to look at who are the people solving it, right? What is the founder persona? And it is really very relevant that the founder is a generous and a kind founder. और वो आपके attitude में दिखता है. Because if you don't, even if you might have the most talented founder, if he doesn't listen to feedback, there's no point putting money there. It's a waste. And the third thing that I say is, do you have your early fans who are like gaga about your product? Ki bhai, ye to. So there is this very famous article, which I think was written by a very famous Google leader. He says, your 1,000 true fans, right? I always keep saying this, that a product which has 1,000 true fans versus 1 million just liking, I like the product, is way better, because these 1,002 fans will become your ambassadors. They will only bring more customers. They will only bring more people. But if you have just it's like if you have the first, it's like the dating experience. If you just go in a date and you don't like anyone and it's just, I liked her, so I met her. Yeah, I liked her, so I met him, right? But a true fan is someone who would feel something going away from his life if your product doesn't exist. Like कि उसको लगेगा कि सच में मेरे जीवन से कुछ चला गया. I lost something if this product doesn't exist. So ये तीन चीजें देखने की मैं बहुत कोशिश करता हूँ. पहला, यार कि मार्केट कितना बड़ा है, कितना इम्पैक्टफुल है. जरूरी नहीं है वो टैम के परस्पेक्टिव से हो, वो इम्पैक्ट पर नोड पे भी हो सकता है कि यूजर के लिए क्या चेंज हो गया, राइट? लाइक somebody buying an electric car, buying a Tesla, even though it might not sell as many cars as Toyota, but for the user a lot changes the moment you buy a Tesla. The second thing I look at is how good is the founder? Is the founder सुनता है? कहीं वो फाउंडर में रेजिलियंस है, ऑनेस्टी है, एटीट्यूड है, और वो परसिस्टेंस है, वो रेजिलियंस है. दैट्स द टीम. एंड द थर्ड थिंग that I generally look at as a testament is, do you have your first 100 fans? who can just come to you and say, wow, this is the best damn product I've seen on the face of the earth. So I think this is a general thesis. And one of my investments that I did in Latin America kind of grew like 40x in like 2 years. Right. So yeah, so that's an amazing thing. Yeah.
Got it. So I know one of the crucial part in your cohort is about system dynamics, and you are a champ of that. I know about it. So I want you to talk something more about system dynamics. Okay, not in related to product management only, but in overall general, and how that help to make decision. Because when people think about system, they only think it is a system which is somewhere situated, but from your perspective it is more different than that. So a few word on system dynamics.
Sure. So I think system dynamics is the art of appreciating a meaningful system, or it is the art of appreciating the complexity of any system. Right? Now, what I mean by that is, what is a system in general? A system is a collection of nodes. Nodes can be humans, it can be organs, it can be any damn thing. It can be the design of the country, it can be the design of the city, it can be design of the healthcare system, economic system, whatever. A physical system is also includes. A system is a collection of nodes who are tied or connected in some meaningful way. Meaningful is the important word. Like a collection of stones is not a system. Right? Because it's not doing anything meaningful. But a collection of bricks, it made a wall, is a meaningful system. Right? It's a meaningful system, right? In some meaningful way towards a purpose. Now, the reality of system dynamics is that it talks about certain principles, that every system is complex, right? One of the things that I keep speaking is that generally as humans we are very simple minded. Simple minded का मतलब होता है जो सामने दिखता है, जो हमारी सेंसेस परसीव करती हैं, वही सिस्टम है, उसके बियॉन्ड नहीं देखते. लेकिन मैं इसका एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल आपको देता हूं. आपने बहुत अच्छा किसी कंपनी के लिए प्रिपेयर किया, यू स्पेंट लाइक 5, 6, 7 months preparing for that role, gave all your best rounds. In the last day, the manager had a fight with the person hiring, fight with his wife, and he says, "Nahi, I am not selecting you. I am pissed," or whatever. Was it your mistake? No, it wasn't, because you prepared so much, right? That is what system dynamic teaches you. There are so many hidden forces which eventually align to the decision that you want to make, right? It is the appreciation of those hidden forces. That's what system dynamics teaches you, right? That is why one of the principles of system dynamics is that most systems are non-linear. What I mean by non-linear is that if there is a condition in a system that the rules of the system change after every 30 minutes, like I'll give you an example. You going home, राइट? जैसे ही आप घर पहुंचे, जो पिछले दिन आपके घर में हो रहा था, क्या एग्जैक्टली वैसा अगले दिन हो रहा होगा? नहीं हो सकता ना. This is why the rules changed, temperature changed, right? The number of people changed, everything changed, the system changed itself. A great person who understands system dynamics knows that instead of making changes to the system without understanding how complex the system is, I would first take a step back and try to understand what are the hidden forces in the system, and then they make changes. Then they say, what are the systemic changes that I can make? That is why people who understand system dynamics, they don't blame nodes. When somebody does something wrong with me, I always say, it's not the person, it's the system. Because the system brought that across to himself. क्योंकि अगर किसी बंदे ने जीवन भर यही देखा है कि पैसे के लिए लड़ाई करी जा रही है, कोई किसी को धोखा दे रहा है, अंत में अगर वो किसी को 20 साल बाद 25 साल बाद धोखा देता है, गलती तो है उसकी, लेकिन it is the fault of the system. He will not change unless and until you change something systemic in the behavior. If you change something systemic in the behavior, automatically the person life will change, and it will take time. It's not going to happen क्योंकि आप, it's the same way I say, if a person goes to rehab, right, goes and stops drinking alcohol, ऐसा क्यों होता है कि वो 6 महीने बाद फिर से पीने शुरू हो जाता है? होता ही है ना. ये तो इतने सारे केसेस होते हैं. I went to rehab, I left alcohol, I became a teetotaler, and after 6 months back, आज 6 महीने बाद मैं फिर से उन्हीं के साथ बैठ के शराब पी रहा हूं. Because it is systemic. You have to so that is what system dynamics teaches you. And again, this is, and majority of the religions on the face of the earth talk about system dynamics. Bhagavad Gita, be anchored in the action. Kyun? Why? Because he knows there are so many hidden forces that outcomes are not under your control. So the only thing under your control is how you act. Exactly the same thing that guy is saying. Lord Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, right? कि आप outcomes को control, outcomes मेरे हाथ में है. In his context, he is the system, right? In that context, right? But what he's saying is, you're not aware of so many hidden forces in the system. तो आप outcome को तो उसको देख के बुरा क्यों मान रहे हो? क्योंकि तो आपको तो पता ही नहीं है कि आपके ना आपसे वो चीज हो रही है कि नहीं हो रही है. तो आप सिर्फ अपने एक्शन में खुशी ढूंढो कि I am doing my perfect, because that is the only thing under your control. And that is what system dynamics teaches you. And again, I am not a champion of system dynamics. I'm an amateur in system dynamics. There are damn good experts across the world. I would not be 10,000th of those people. They are that good at system dynamics. But the one thing that is special for me in system dynamics, and why I started Rethink Systems, that's why the name Rethink Systems. That's the name. That is why it came from that, right? Rethink Systems is because I understood that deep down all the major figures on the face of the planet, when they talked about the principles of higher value, they were eventually talking about how to build resilient systems. And how do you build high quality? Because what is the one quality of a great system? It's self-evolving, self-repairing, self-improving, and self-growing, right? That is why civilizations grow, right? And last thing that I've also taught, a system causes its own death. That's why each of the civilizations also die. It is because of that. So that is why that is the deal on system dynamics. Yeah.
Deep thought. People might understand it, what you are trying to say. Yeah. And just a plug-in, if anyone want to hear Shravan's Bhagavad Gita system dynamics, then enroll to Rethink System, and you can definitely...
Makes sense. Everybody can go to rethink-systems.in and check it out. Yes.
Yeah. So, balancing a role. So how do you manage to juggle being a founder, teacher, speaker, investor, all at once? I just wanted to know.
I think when people don't have any work to do in life, they end up spending time at other places. Jokes apart. I think I am a very good planner of my day, right? I wake up early in the morning, and I've spoken about this, right? The first thing that I do is I close my room and I just open my laptop and just put forward my tasks that I have to close every day. I don't typically look at the tasks. I don't procrastinate a lot. A lot of people spend a lot of time on procrastination. I don't do that. I typically am like a task manager. Tick, 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 tick. The reality is, when I'm so resilient that when I do tick, 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 eventually the entire day finishes. So I spend, but I'll give you some thematic categories. I spend 25% of my time on product structures. How do you build it slightly better? Doing the company stuff, understanding 25-30% of the time. 35% of the time, it is generally networking, meeting new people, talking to them, talking to investors, talking to founders who have been working. Then 10-20% of the time I typically spend on solving executional issues in the company, in the community, with students and other places, and writing content. And the remaining 10-20%, if I do get time, which is now it's not 20%, it has reduced to like 10% or less than that, I spend some time for myself where I read. I try to learn something. The reading component has slightly gone down because of the sheer amount of work that I'm doing. But the reality is I spend like almost 25% or 30% of my time first solving strategic issues in the company, in the community. And it's a great thing that the company and the community overlap a lot, because a lot of decisions go there. 10-20% of my time is primarily networking, which is a very big chunk of my time, because I meet new people, build new connections. I'm recently going for an event sponsored by a Fortune 100 company, another 3 weeks, and plan that out. And then the next 30% is solving executional issues, writing content, doing things, somebody's blocked somewhere, and doing things like that. And the last 10% I keep to myself, where I read new stuff, experiment, give new ideas and stuff like that. I think that is where my general work day is planned, and remaining whatever 6, 7, 8 hours, 10 hours I do, I take rest. Typically try to go running and spend some time with my wife, obviously. Thoda wo bhi karta hu, but that is how it works. Yes.
Yep. I know we are out of time. So one last question to you.
Sure.
One advice that you would give to like the viewers or the listeners, like they want to be the next Shravan. Initially you mentioned don't follow my path, but if they want to be the next Shravan, what would be that one advice so that they can change their careers and they can also go to a good path of their life?
Sure. Sure. I think the one advice that I would definitely give everyone is that please try to understand that things are not solvable until they become. I'll repeat. Things are not solvable until they become. And the only thing that will make you successful in life is, guys, have a insane pain bearing capacity. If you can believe in delayed gratification, if you truly believe, and what is delayed gratification? Doing your work consistently without the expectation of a reward. It's hard to say, but if you do that consistently over a period of time, whatever you did, then sky is the limit. Because trust me, trust the process. Live in this, in the present. Focus on your actions. Don't overthink. Don't procrastinate. Do it for a significant period of time. I am sitting here. If you truly do it after 2 years, we will have a conversation together, and then you will tell me what changed in your life, right? So build pain bearing capacity. It's for a good thing. Be anchored in action. Be humble. And one last snippet that I would say: reading. Nothing compounds as knowledge, right? Makes sense. Awesome.
Thank you, Shravan, for your valuable 1 hour of time, and thank you giving that time to me. I know it's a valuable time for you, but you took your 1 hour for me and for this podcast so that everyone get a good knowledge from your side. From my bottom of my heart, thanks a lot, and hope so. Rethink system builds more and more. Now it's only in India. Let it be like it's also in global, but I want it to be more globally achievable. Yeah, more globally achievable. And that's it. Thanks for your time once again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sanju bhai. This was super lovely. I think I had a phenomenal conversation. And once again, lots of love to your viewers. Hope they learned something from it. Do let me know the feedback of how they found this. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.